The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Thanks for hanging out. Welcome to it. Tuesday is here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. And numbers to get in today, 489-1240, 489-1240. You can email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com. Wherever you hear us, toll free, 800-825-5865. We invite you to watch the show. Can hear it that way as well. Different streaming platforms to watch the show. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio, KFOR, Facebook, and Twitter. And can also catch us on the Big Stick, 590, our friends in central Nebraska and northeast Nebraska as well. Just to clarify, neither of you two young pups have entered the portal today. It is Portal Tuesday, and I'm making sure everyone's all right. I'm getting a solemn stare, kind of a blank stare by Connor Clark. I am not feeling good about that. His Twitter at C_Clark_27. Elijah Herbel at Herbal Essence and at Schmidt_radio for me. I'm not going anywhere. No one would take me. But that's kind of the name of the game is the portal. We'll dive into a really good take on what is happening in Boulder. A controlled burn. Do you agree? The positives and negatives of a controlled burn. We'll talk to former Buff. That's right, I painted him that way, but longtime Nebraska sportscaster and now national man at ESPN and part of Schick and Nick. Matt Schick with us in 1 hour. And in about 15 minutes, we'll spend some time with the Athletics. Mitch Sherman, some thoughts from him, not only on the spring game, but Nebraska football moving forward. 3 names, fellas, we know about with the portal. Logan Smothers, Victor Jones, Richard Torres. Go. No, in all honesty, big thanks to Logan Smothers and his family for a lot of years here. A lot of perseverance and a lot of elbow grease. Almost had that Iowa win. Got his one start a couple of years ago and was dinged this spring. Didn't really have a shot to do anything except be a good teammate with that injury. Richard Torres, you wonder what can be. He's a top 50 quarterback from the 2022 class, a top 125 player out of the state of Texas. He's 6'5". Guy came off a knee injury, just redshirted a year ago. So Torres can throw the football. He'll end up somewhere, and I think Torres can have a good career. Victor Jones was a top 100 receiver for Nebraska. Just 1 year, 3 head coaches for Victor. I laugh and I shouldn't, but that's just how it's been, and that's how it can be at some college football programs. But a 3-star talent from Olympia, Florida. Victor's got hands, and we talked to him on one of the signing days, I think.
Yeah, we did.
Love his attitude, love his confidence, and hopefully he'll land somewhere. So, guys, 3 names we're not surprised about. Are you surprised there's not any more? What's the number? What's the over-under departure list you put at? We know Nebraska needs to get down to 85, but there is a bit of a loophole where guys can just go on scholarship, but no longer academic scholarship.
Well, you think there was some conversations that happened this morning down at One Memorial Stadium Drive. I mean, I think that's
what it is.
The number one thing you can look at
It's
here.
exit interview time.
Exit interview time, and guess what? Matt Rule or Marcus Satterfield probably talked with the quarterbacks and the receivers this morning, maybe some other position groups as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get some breaking news in here during the show or maybe a little bit later tonight for us to talk about. But this transfer portal exodus is far from done. Will it reach the point of Deion in Colorado? I doubt it, but
nothing will.
This is the first 3 names into the portal, and I would venture to say there's going to be plenty more, including Schmidt, as you said, some guys who maybe just decide that it's time to end their football career. And I think you usually think of some more homegrown kids that are playing on a scholarship. Whenever you think about that, the guys that are going to want to stick around, continue being Huskers, being close to friends and family, get a great education, all on scholarship, and just not be part of the football team. I assume we're going to see some of those stay. But this is just the first 3 names of many. And I think for Husker fans to look at these 3 names, none of them come as a complete surprise. I think you go, man, Logan Smothers, we wanted the best for you. Man, Torres, we wanted the best for you. Jones, we wanted the best for you. But we as Husker fans are going to support you in whatever endeavors you end up doing. And from Logan Smothers' point of view, that was the guy who always put on for the university, always played for the N on the side of the helmet, played with a lot of pride. He always wanted it to work out here. And though it's shown that it has not worked out here for Logan Smothers, you wish him the best. And I think that's how it's going to be with most of these transfer portal departures that we're going to see here in the coming days. And if there's any positive takeaway from this, it's no surprises thus far.
We'll get to some of your phone calls here in a minute. I just wonder, where can a guy like Logan Smothers end up? Is he a guy that's got to be a position change? Is he a slot guy? Don't know. Is he a guy in a running quarterback offense? I mean, the zone read offense, there are still programs that do it. And I just wonder, Coach Chins is out in Boise. That was the guy who really recruited Logan Smothers to Nebraska from Muscle Shoals, Alabama. The other get for Chins at his time in Lincoln was Cam Taylor-Britt, kind of an unknown 3-star product from Alabama. So there's room in the world of college football for a stand-up, tough athlete in Logan Smothers. And listen, you saw 3 quarters of goodness from him when you have an offense that fits his skill set. Listen, there's a lot of us, and count me as one, where it would have been fun to see Logan as a slot receiver, kind of a utility hybrid type guy. I know he's not big enough to be a tight end run fullback hybrid, but just his attitude. He's the guy you want on the team that is a fantastic athlete, but he had been through the ringer here. Just flat out with offenses, coaching changes, opportunity, and he never said die. Good for him to go find a football team to have one year of college football. Hopefully he can see the field.
Yeah, hopefully he can see the field is right, but I think if we've learned anything with Logan Smothers, it's that his attitude is what you want in a college football team. Wherever he ends up going, he is at least going to compete for a starting spot, assuming that what the coaching staffs from whatever prospective schools tell him end up, not being liars, which that happens in the transfer portal. So you hope for the best from him. You hope that he gets some good guidance through this process and gets to land on his feet somewhere. And just throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what'll stick. No inside information here. Does a transfer to Kansas make sense for a guy like Logan Smothers?
Good poll.
With what you saw from their offense last year, and I'm pretty sure their quarterback is returning for one more year. So I'm not sure.
He's a top 10 returning quarterback.
But he did have some injury issues last season, and you don't know how he's going to return from that. I'm not saying Kansas is the spot for Logan Smothers, but a spot with an offense like Kansas just seems like it'd be so hand in glove for Smothers.
You said Kansas. Can I throw out, does he not seem like a Pat Fitzgerald guy?
Oh, I didn't even think about him staying in conference.
Well,
I don't think he will.
No, but I wanted to throw it out there because, Fitz has had a couple, when they've been good, they've had transfer quarterbacks come in. But Fitz has had, who's a kid out of Wheaton, Illinois? The guy
Clayton Thorson.
Yeah, Thorson. Thorson was a beast at 6'5", but he could run it enough and was competent throwing it.
Well,
Thorson's senior year was when they won the Big Ten, and then he got the kid out of Indiana that transferred in.
Yeah.
The quarterback.
Peyton Ramsey. And I agree to that somewhat.
I don't think he has a shot at beating anyone out at Kansas.
No, I'm trying to think of what schools would have an offense or
Northwestern's got
like Kansas.
Northwestern really, dude. Oh, they're open for business. They're open for suggestions on offense.
That's true.
How about another great spot for former Nebraska quarterbacks? Rutgers.
Yeah.
Ended up being a great spot for. Now his name is escaping me. This is
Noah Vedral.
Noah Vedral. There it is. Ended up being a good spot for him.
For that one
they
guy.
sucked.
Well, Okay, I mean,
did he see the field?
Beggars can't be choosers in terms of finding a spot in the transfer portal.
Look,
if you're looking to go find a spot to get some playing time, I don't think you can be a chooser and say, well, it has to be a winner too.
I don't think he's going to play Power 5 football. I don't think that's in the cards for him right now, just because eligibility-wise too, and that brings me back to the Northwestern point too with Fitz. I mean, ever since Thorson left, obviously you had the 1 year with Ramsey, and that was the COVID year, so things were kind of weird, and they ended up winning the Big Ten West. I mean, Northwestern's had the bulk of their success when they have consistency at quarterback. I mean, they have not had consistency at quarterback.
They've been consistent at finding a good portal guy for a year.
Yeah, and it hasn't translated. So I think he goes. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back south because he's an Alabama kid, maybe plays for a Sun Belt team
Arkansas
or something
State
like that. Or
like
Southern
that.
Alabama or something like that. Because if you're Logan Smothers, you want to get on the field, right? And you said it earlier. I mean, you've been through the ringer. You've had multiple head coaches. You've had multiple offensive coordinators. You've had multiple chances to maybe get in a game, but you're not sure if you're going to start this week because there's a quarterback competition. So I think he's going to go to a non-Power 5 school where he can get on the field consistently at start at quarterback because ultimately, well, that's what he's in college football to do. And I really hope he gets, a good match for him where he can get on the field because he's been here for a while now and he's, really paid his dues behind the scenes. And obviously he's been banged up a little bit too.
He's never really – he's had one opportunity.
Yeah.
He's had one opportunity, and there's always, in my humble opinion, the minute that they brought Mack in here to give him a shot at quarterback versus convincing him, which is what Rice did, to play slot receiver, that ended any help or hope of the Logan Smothers time. And, of course, with Adrian moving on, I mean, Nebraska went totally different with a guy like Casey Thompson to pair with what Whipple ran. So you were square peg, round hole last year with your skill set, and you really just never got much of a shot. It's like either you didn't show it in practice or there was always concerns about him throwing the football. Okay? And that was just it. Richard Torres, tall drink of water, 6'5", Texas gunslinger. Is he a guy that with 4 years of eligibility, I mean, does Rule make a phone call to McGuire down at Tech? I mean, does he not seem like a fit for the Red Raider Air Raid? And I know that's not what it is anymore.
That's where I was going to go, though.
There's some semblance of let's chuck it around, and he's a Big 12 quarterback with a wide open offense and a lot of mustard on the football and some touch to go up top. I think that'd be kind of fun. Hell, Deion needs about everything right now, but not quarterback because his kid's playing it.
That's where you fall into the discussion there. But, I like that Texas Tech suggestion because, I mean, we've heard all these things.
He's not a runner here, but
right.
Maybe.
Well, yeah, he wants to throw the football. He wants to toss the rock around, right? And the Big 12 is exactly the league to do it. Texas Tech is, as you said, the perfect place to do that. I know Big 12 is a lot of offense, not a lot of defense.
In Baylor with what Aranda does?
Maybe, but I could see him more so in Tech, again, because I don't know, maybe this is just me or maybe this is more of a basketball thing too. I feel like transfers tend to go back to where like they're closer to home.
Sure.
After. So I could see that Texas Tech thing because you're still in power football.
We may be all wet with our takes.
See, I am looking.
We may be all wet with our takes.
I look more at a place like Houston for Richard Torres. And again, this whole conversation, we don't have any insight into this.
We're just throwing darts here. But him and Holgerson, I mean, he kind of Torres does seem like a running or an air raid quarterback.
A fun and gun.
Yeah, Holgerson's a pirate disciple, and Holgerson's dude left West Virginia that was in the Big 12 to end back up in the Big 12 to take over Houston. But he's got such a great recruiting base, and he's been a longtime Texas recruiter. Why not? I hope he gets to pair up with the Skullet. I say that lovingly.
And what's nice about Torres' situation is just how young he still is. I mean, still 4 years of eligibility ahead of him. Even last year was hampered by injury as he got through fall camp and into the season. So, I mean, you're essentially looking at a raw prospect still, a guy that has gotten a little bit of college strength and conditioning under his belt, just a little bit of work with quarterback coaches. You have pretty much a blank slate as a college coach for Richard Torres, and I think him being another guy that will hopefully land on his feet, find a spot that will be the best for him. Maybe not getting on the field this year, but in a couple years, 3-4 years, I can see Richard Torres being a good quarterback. We saw it in the spring game in moderation. Richard Torres, great arm talent. Can he put it all together? Some school in the country, I think, is going to be very lucky to get Richard Torres.
Nope, Torres, heck of a good ball player, and we'll see what other Husker names are out there. Listen, if you're in the backfield, I mean, you all got pretty good glimpses on Saturday, and you have to feel pretty good where there's a role for you. You know, the big back role is for Irvin. You're an incumbent starter that has been corrected a little bit. If you're Anthony Grant, A.J. Allen got back from injury, plagued him a lot of this spring, but he has got playmaker written all over him. Emmett Johnson's a young pup that's going to keep grinding. And Ramir Johnson, I would think, is somebody that for sure in this offense has a role and history with your current running backs coach, is somebody that could be a third down option for sure, or you just put him out in the slot. It's not like the Nebraska's carved out 100 wide receivers right now. The depth is a concern. We'll dive in some impressions moving forward with Nebraska football. Mitch Sherman going to join us from The Athletic. Matt Schick of ESPN, less than an hour. Hail Varsity on a Tuesday. We're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And we say hi to Connor Clark as well. Mitch Sherman with The Athletic. Mitch, Elijah and Connor are not in the portal. You are not in the portal, correct? How are you?
I'm definitely not in the portal. Some other people are, though. And I'm happily safe where I am.
That is good. That's awesome. So the names we have are Smothers, Jones, and Torres. Are you hearing of any other names that are there?
Logan has not announced that, correct? Unless it's happened in the last.
Logan has not officially announced.
Nothing on his social media. Are you hearing that maybe some of the other media reports out there saying he is out? It may not be true.
Oh, it's going to happen, but I mean, I'm going to let the kid have his day. I mean, he's graduating from Nebraska on May 20th and has been.
Mitch, do we got you, bud? Let's try and reconnect with Mitch Sherman. That makes me sad.
Schmitty, are you back?
Okay, we got you. We thought that.
We thought you'd entered the transfer portal on us mid-interview.
We
I
lost
did enter
you.
the transfer portal momentarily. You know, my wife, I'm just going to throw her under the bus here. She tends to call every time I go on the air with you, and she did again. And that time I accidentally switched over instead of putting her rejecting her call as I attempted to do.
I have not talked to Mrs. Mitch in years, but you're welcome to conference her in.
I almost merged the calls then. That would have been great. We could have had some fun there.
Yeah.
No. As I was saying about Smothers, he is set to graduate next month, and I think you'll hear something here officially from him in the next, tonight or tomorrow. But I'm going to let him have that announcement. I think that's that he's earned that in the 3.5 years he's spent at Nebraska, being loyal through multiple regimes and sticking through some difficult circumstances. And I would say this about Logan. He's going to test the waters, and he's going to be welcomed back if he doesn't find a place that is the right fit for him. He has a lot of love for Nebraska and is going to be a Nebraska graduate and is proud of that. And if there's not a situation out there that he feels is the right fit for him, then you could see him back in 2023. But yeah, he's gonna definitely at some point soon here enter his name.
Mitch, we've seen different coaches have different approaches to what they do once guys enter the transfer portal. It sounds like Matt Rule has been pretty clear that you can enter your name to the transfer portal, and if you think your best situation is Nebraska, you are free to come back. But there's a quote out there from Steve Sarkisian, I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, where he said, we're going to have all those conversations before you enter your name, and if you enter your name in the transfer portal, there's no home for Texas at you anymore. So I want to get your take on how Matt Rule is handling the transfer portal, as that's been really the biggest change to college football for him since he left to go to the NFL. The transfer portal, and it sounds like Nebraska is willing to let guys come back once they enter their name in the portal.
Well, I think it's a case-by-case thing.
Okay.
And I think that's why they're having these conversations. And Matt Rule was clear about the conversations that he wanted to have with every player when spring football ended. And I think it's why it was fairly quiet, or it was very quiet last week on the transfer front for Nebraska, because they had yet to have the conversations that they're now having. We're a day and a half, really 2.5 days, because there's no time to waste. So I think they begin that process on Sunday after the spring game, and they're well into it at this point. He sits down with every player, the position coach sits down with every player, and it's a two-way conversation. They talk about what they see for that player's future, and that player expresses any concerns or feelings that he has about how things are moving forward for him. And in some cases, I think there's a mutual parting of ways where, no, the door is not open for that player to come back when they go into the portal. And then in other cases, like you may see with Logan Smothers, there is the possibility that a player could come back if the situation is not right for him to transfer. So it's not everyone. You definitely saw that in the first round of portal entries, where Jamari Butler went into the portal and quickly came out and came back to Nebraska. That luxury was not afforded to every player who went in December.
Mitch Sherman is with us on Hail Varsity Radio. And Mitch, another transfer that we were talking about in the first segment, Richard Torres, a guy with 4 years of eligibility. We were just trying to guess about maybe where he could end up. A lot of us said Big 12 country back in Texas. Do you agree with that statement, or where do you think Torres could end up?
Yeah, I think you got to look Texas first. He's from San Antonio, so he has relationships through recruiting and through his upbringing with coaches in Texas, high school coaches and others in the state of Texas who have connections around that state. I wouldn't say it's a done deal that he's going to go to a school in Texas, and I think you probably want to look beyond just the Big 12 schools in Texas. You may want to look to some of the Group of 5 schools in Texas. Maybe that's a better fit for Richard. He has a big arm, and I think he has a Power 5 arm. But it remains to be seen if he has it in him to be able to be a starting quarterback at that level. So we'll see as my car is going crazy here. Sorry about the beeping. I got two 12-year-olds trying to get out of the car to go watch a high school baseball game, and now I'm going to park.
No, you do it.
I'm really multitasking here as we get through this one. I would look for Torres. I'd look at the Big 12 schools, but I would look maybe more closely at some of the Group of 5 programs in the state of Texas.
Mitch, going to go to Saturday. What did you like about the spring game? Some impressions you take with you.
Well, I would say the number one solid impression, the number one thing that I came out of that game being more happy about with Nebraska than I thought I would be going in was the development of young players on the defensive line. And it was only one scrimmage, but it was 125 plays, which is a pretty good sample. And it fell in line with some of the things that we've heard about those young players up to that point through the first 14 practices of the spring. Prince Will, Cam Lenhart, Maverick Noonan, MJ Sherman, who's a transfer, Elijah Judy up front as a transfer from Texas A&M. Those guys were all active. A.J. Rollins as a guy who moved over from tight end, same with Brody Tagaloa. All of those guys made solid impressions, and I think it was more than just going up against an offensive line that wasn't ready to block those guys. I thought the first-team offensive line, not all of those guys were going against the first-team offensive line, but a bunch of them were. I thought the first-team offensive line held up, and you put Teddy Prohaska into that group, and they're not deep, but I think they have the ability, if they stay healthy, and don't have to move positions. And, you saw Turner Corcoran go out with an injury in the game, and then Nuri Nuili had to move over to left tackle, and you had to put Henry Lutovsky in and move around Ethan Piper. That's the kind of stuff that, and it's going to happen. I mean, they're offensive linemen. They're not going to most likely be 5 times 12 starting in the same position, but they don't have the depth up there right now that can make them as good as they would be if you've got that 5 just going at it every game. It's going to help a little bit when the freshmen come in. They've already got Gunnar Gatula, but more freshmen coming in the summer, although I don't know that I expect that those guys are going to do much more than play in a couple of games. I think they're redshirt candidates. It will add depth. But anyway, to get back to the point about the defense, I don't think it was an offensive line issue that led to the strong play, the 18 tackles for loss that the defensive players had. So that's my number one takeaway from the spring game, is how impressive those guys looked and how good, how disruptive I think that defensive front can be this year and in years beyond when those guys mature and develop in the program. And then I'd probably go to the quarterback play. I think Jeff Sims and Heinrich Harburg as kind of a change of pace quarterback, I think he's involved in Nebraska's plans in the fall, that they held their own. They did well. Sims looked good and comfortable in the pocket, looked good as a passer. I don't think they used him in the run game the way that they will next fall. And then Harburg came in and gave Nebraska what I think it wants, as a guy who can run the ball and it is dangerous when it's in his hands.
Mitch Sherman is with us here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. And Mitch, you kind of laid it out perfectly with the spring game. You don't really know until you get a frame of reference whether or not the defensive line was that good or whether the offensive line's having some issues. You can make some inferences. And I want to get your take on the turnovers. Was that something for the offense that's going to be concerning to you over the next weeks and months, or is that something where you tip your hat to the defense and say they had a good Saturday? Which side of that coin are you on?
I think it's concerning, but I think you also have to take into account that it involved some players who aren't going to be in those positions most likely during the season. Now, if you have injuries, you might have that happen. But Gabe Irvin was sure-handed. That some of the other backs did have some issues, but they're going to work on that. And you'd rather see it happen now. You'd rather see them have this summer to really stress the importance of ball security at the running back position. The quarterback stuff. Sims put a couple balls on the ground that were more exchange issues, and he was able to get back on top of both of them. I know Matt Rule doesn't have a lot of patience for fumbles, and I've heard him say it multiple times that fumbles are something that is going to get you pulled out of a game if it happens and repeatedly and it becomes a trend. They're not going to just overlook that. Interceptions he has a little more patience with, but not fumbles. So yeah, they had 8 in the spring game as a team, and everybody who fumbled is a part of that team. So you can't just say, it was a second or third team guy, and that doesn't matter because the first team did well. But it was cleaner with the first team. I'll be interested. I'd say a couple weeks into camp to revisit that topic with the coaches, with E.J. Barthel and with Marcus Satterfield, to see how it's going, and then the proof is going to come in those first couple of games, and we'll see if Nebraska turns it over a bunch. Then it could be a real issue for this team, but at least they know now, 4 months before the season, that it's something they have to stress.
Mitch, about 30 seconds here. What did you make of the play of Chubba Purdy, especially on the ground?
I thought he looked more comfortable than what we saw during the season. He's going to be a guy to watch this week. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. Right now, they're potentially down 2 quarterbacks. There's 4 left, so. Chubba's role next season is still very much to be determined, but I think it was a step in the right direction for him.
Mitch, enjoy some baseball, bud. Thanks for checking in with us today.
Okay, thanks, guys. Take care.
There he is, Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic. Find him on Twitter, @Mitch Sherman, and we'll dive in. Hit the email bag, some questions in after the spring game. It's Hail Varsity, and we're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. So Good stuff from Mitch Sherman. Get the podcast segment there. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Can do the whole show or just the segment. Matt Schick, ESPN, and the Schick and Nick show coming up here in about 20 minutes or so. Hour 2 wide open, 5:20 and beyond. We'll get into Tominaga, what he's doing, Nebraska's basketball schedule, and also the NFL draft. That is Thursday, and things get underway with that. Pretty intriguing draft. You've got just a ton of Big Ten talent that's going to go in the first round. It's not all same school stuff like you're seeing from Tennessee or Alabama or Georgia, but you are going to see a number, not quite a third, but a high level of Big Ten kids going in the first round. So Dylan emails in, touched on this briefly yesterday, and want to get your guys' thoughts as we truly do put a bow on spring football and we keep our radar and ears open for portal departures, or at least kids putting their name in the portal from Nebraska moving forward. And that's a question. Isn't it? Is Chubba Purdy headed that direction? Where does he fit plan-wise? I think Chubba Purdy, listen, I think there's two guys at Nebraska right now that can go win you football games at quarterback. One's got a hurt shoulder. The other is Mr. Sims. I do not trust, and this is not a shot at him. He needs more seasoning. But I don't trust Harburg, and I don't trust Purdy right now to go win you ball games. They went in last year, bless their heart. Well, Harburg didn't, because he clearly wasn't trusted, unfortunately, by Mount Whipple. But you saw some Purdy by default go in, and he's super athletic, but it's still kind of the same thing. You saw an interception against Oklahoma. You saw an interception at the end of the spring game. You saw some issues with staying healthy. He is just a fantastic athlete. He's got an arm. He's got athletic ability. Same with Harburg. But it was a 2-9 passing day. If you find roles for these guys, fellas, and they accept those roles, keep them in that quarterback room and let's give them a Tim Tebow package.
Well, here's the thing:
quarterbacks don't want to accept their roles. That sounds harsh. But they want to go be the guy somewhere.
They want to go be a quarterback. And whenever you talk about...
Especially when your brother's Brock.
Yeah.
I get it.
But whenever you talk about Chubba and you talk about Harburg, it'd be a luxury in college football to have 4 guys that you feel comfortable that can go out there.
Think about having 2 fellas, let alone 1, stay and get better and get groomed.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think you can sit here and say, man, wish you could rely on Chubba and Harburg to go out and win you football games. In college football, your 3rd and 4th stringers aren't supposed to be the guys that you're supposed to go out and rely on.
They're supposed to go win their job after the redshirt freshman season.
Well, their job is to go out there and be an animal for the practice squad. You want to go give the best look to the starting defense that you can during the week, and then by doing that, by playing the starting defense week in, week out, that's whenever you're going to make your improvements. That's when you're going to get better. And then whenever your time comes, whenever Casey graduates and Jeff Sims graduates, it's your time to go in there and step up and go win a starting role. So
if you're still here.
If you're still here, yeah. The thing is Nebraska has been lucky to have one guy over the past 6 seasons that you feel comfortable going out to win football games for you, to go out and be that guy. And I think Nebraska potentially has 2 on their roster right now. So instead of looking at what the 3rd and 4th string guys potentially are doing and how they're getting on the field, I think you can just look at the top 2 guys and be happy that Nebraska has 2 guys that you feel comfortable with. Because based on what I've seen right now, and we haven't seen Casey Thompson, this new offense, but based on what I've seen so far, I think I feel comfortable if either of those guys is your starting quarterback against Minnesota in August.
Big time. Now, guys, here's the problem. Here's the reality. Nebraska may have 2 starters at quarterback, 2 different styles, or one that's able to run in Sims and more of your pocket guy in Casey. But both guys have missed a lot of their career because of injuries. Okay, shoulder issue for Casey that had to get cleaned up, thumb issues at Texas, gamer, baller, Lionheart, all that good stuff. You've missed time. Sims missed some time with a foot issue. And Sims took care of the football aside from some mishaps, and I'm not glossing over the fumbling, but it wasn't an issue where he got sacked and it was stripped, so it might be a little bit more concerning where it's the fundamental part where you're glancing off your fullback and here's a fumble. But both guys have been injured, so while you may have a luxury momentarily, fellas, to keep two with 4 years of combined starting, you also have 4 years of combined injury. So you're going to need a third. Dare I say you're going to need a third, and you're going to sure as hell need a third that's competent and can manage and go make a play or two to help you win a ball game next year. Now, Chubb has at least drove the offense down the field. Was that Minnesota?
Yes.
That he looked great?
Yes.
And then
First drive of the game.
Yeah, the play calling went down the old play sheet versus sticking with what was working. Okay. You have a.
Or you could say it went up Mount Whipple.
Right. Let's move on to the next box. We've got to check. Here's my game plan. Just keep rolling with what's working until they stop it, and then go to the next thing on your list. All right. That's just me, the jerk on the radio. So, but Nebraska's going to need a third quarterback.
Well, and this is interesting to me too, because I know we've kind of touched on this in the show before, but the question of, okay, how much do we see of maybe both of them against Minnesota? Does that change that, knowing the injury history? Maybe you reserve one or the other for a time where, say, if Thompson starts week one and he goes down, or vice versa with Sims if he goes down after starting week one. Do you save one of them? I mean, do you have both of them go out there and kind of execute different parts of your offense that you want? Do you go maybe, if you don't want to risk Sims getting hurt, do you dare go to Chubba to get you a design run play? I mean, there's a lot of questions.
Total telegraph, though, right?
Right.
Theoretically. I mean, hey, nothing to see here. He's not going to quarterback counter it.
Well, the thing is like Searles.
Look out.
Searles on the broadcast, though, on Saturday was talking about using Harburg as a Taysom Hill type for this offense. And
I love the name. It's a good comp.
And whenever Taysom Hill comes in for the Saints, you go, I think they're probably going to do something with him on this play. And guess what? Defenses in the NFL, at least the Broncos, still can't stop it.
No, defenses can't stop it. Taysom Hill's made a lot of money and a really good living being good. I'd say he's a good passer for what he is, but he's your wildcat quarterback.
And it still works in the NFL. I mean, think about Blake Bell with Oklahoma a couple years ago. They went to that Belldozer formation, and everyone and their mother knew what was coming. They were going to snap it to Blake Bell, and he was going to drive forward and try to get 2 yards into the end zone, and it worked damn near every single time.
So Tebow made his living in his bones when he split a national championship as a true freshman.
So if Harburg is limited and the defense knows what's coming, it doesn't matter if you can go out there and execute. And is Nebraska Oklahoma? Is Nebraska the New Orleans Saints? No, definitely not. Far from it right now. But I think you can reach a point where even if the defense knows what's coming because a certain guy's in the game, you can still go out and execute.
I promise we'll get to the email on the suggestion about Bo. That is on the way. We'll wind down this first hour. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Matt Schick in about 10 minutes or so. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. It's Hail Varsity Radio. So, reminder about getting your friends at Dyer Law in connection with you if you've suffered either personal injury or workers' comp. Now, you might be confused about the options for your workers' compensation claim. Put your trust in the team at Dyer Law to help ensure that your rights are protected and you get that settlement you deserve. Call the Dyer Law team today at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with trusted professionals about your workers' compensation claim. Workers' comp, it's no fun to deal with. Let the experts and the professionals at Dyer Law help. Dyer.law, 402-393-7529. Number to get in with your friends at Dyer Law. So we will dive into the Deion effect with former Buff Matt Schick.
And have you guys heard what has been coming out from Colorado today? that there's been some of these players that have entered their name in the portal have been told by the new coaching staff that, no, you don't get any practice film to go send to your new coaches. So
it's a little different than declaring for the NFL draft and having your key card not work.
A little bit different. But it's been a case of like these guys going and saying, hey, Coach Prime, we want our film from last year so we can send it to coaches. They know what we have. And the coaching staff has been saying no. So that's some drama out in Colorado. These guys don't have any practice film. So if they didn't get on the field last season, they have no film whatsoever they can use.
We will get into, and I know some of you are like, well, you're a Nebraska show. Why are you talking Buffs? Listen, this is fascinating with what Deion's doing. It's absolutely fascinating, and you got 2 years to stick it to him. And as great as he was as a player and what he did at Jackson State, he could do and say what he wanted down there. And Colorado, because of where their program is at, had no choice but to go with the Prime brand.
The nuclear option.
Right. I mean, it's okay, we are so bad and so terrible and so low. I mean, his quote today was hilarious and not wrong, but if you're the Pac-12, you fine his ass about, well, you can't keep players in the Pac-12. We got to get to the Big 12 pronto. He wants to get to the Big 12 so he can go ransack Texas because that's where he started his coaching career in high school. And Prime also, of course, killed it for the Cowboys for a lot of years. So, the On 3 folks, their national writer, had a really good story on just what is going on. Mel Tucker is the gold standard for flipping a roster through the portal. And, Nebraska and Minnesota and Michigan State are 3 recent examples of more so Minnesota and Nebraska in a 2-year turnaround. We're talking 20-plus numbers of attrition, okay? Colorado said, hold my Coors on that one.
And it's been so extreme that if Colorado turns themselves into a 9-3 or a 10-2 program within 2 years, that's the new standard of college football moving forward. So that's why we're going to continue talking. The rebuilds of Matt Rule at Nebraska and Deion at Colorado, and even
they're super different about how to go about it.
Even Fickle at Wisconsin, they've all gone different routes, and they're all going to be intrinsically linked as we follow their coaching careers. So that's why we continue talking about it. It's important.
We'll get there. We'll get to the email about honoring Coach Pelini. And Matt Schick and Nick, ESPN, on the way.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Mr. Matt Schick is with us, and he's hanging out just hours before he gets those sleeves rolled up to do some college baseball. Schick, what do you know?
Well, I know that ECU is at NC State in Raleigh right now. I am calling the game tonight on ESPNU, 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. Cannot wait. I will be calling the game with one guy named Kyle Peterson. Not sure if he's known locally there or not in Nebraska or if he has anything to do with college baseball, but I'm looking forward to that and looking forward to talking to you. So, yes, I'm in the middle of my prep. I thought, you know what, let's work in you guys as well. I've also got a colonoscopy prep I've got to do later on tonight.
Ooh, no.
Yeah, and so this is really, I don't know which prep is more arduous and more time-consuming and more painful, but I guess we're going to find out. Got a couple of preps going on.
Can you carry a tune? I mean, do you want to just do a rendition of Moon River right now?
I feel like I should. I've been staring at this bottle of prep that they tell me I got to do 2 of these bottles and essentially gargle them and put them down, and we'll see if I'm close to a restroom. Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, you're going to have the worst 4 hours of your life. I remember whenever my dad was taking those a couple years ago, and he's like, yeah, no, I won't get into it just to spare the ears of our listeners.
The bottle of prep.
Yeah, bottle of prep. It's what we're not what they call it, but yeah, it's pretty amazing substance. I can't wait.
Well, get some well wishes to Schick at ESPN_Schick. Now, I need to ask you, are you true or false? You are doing the baseball broadcast tonight in a Deion cowboy hat.
Well, those are the only cowboy hats I own. So, yes, that is the don't be redundant, Deion cowboy hat. No reason to repeat yourself. But, yeah, we're feeling good. I don't know if we'll be able to field a team next year, but we're feeling good. There's, I don't know how many players you have to have in order to field a team. I don't know how much depth you're supposed to have, but I know he's going to be out there. We're going to be fired up to watch him.
Well, Matt, true or false, and while we're on the topic of the broadcast booth here, before we get to Colorado, true or false, you're going to begin drinking that prep about the 6th inning and see how far you can make it?
So I've been given a lot of advice about the prep, and I said, look, why don't I just do it, right at the start of the game or do it, a few hours before? And my wife, who's done it, said, are you crazy? You're not broadcasting the game from the toilet, you idiot. So, so I'm not sure I'm going to tempt fate there or test fate. I am going to make sure I'm doing this the right way and make sure that I am near the porcelain edifice.
Matt Schick is with us. So what's the count up to with the exodus in Boulder? And overall, I mean, ESPN had the coverage of the Buff Spring game. They got the field shoveled off. Things are cranking up for that September 9th showdown, Nebraska, Colorado. It's going to be glorious. Between some teams that really have stumbled into this season, but there's some hope with 2 new head coaches. And Schick, listen, they lost some of their talent, but they had to go get a whole bunch more talent to really kind of flip this thing, and they're not the first team to flip a roster.
Yeah, I was looking at their 2-deep the other day, and they had 16 of their top 22 were transfers. So, it's an interesting way to go about it. But frankly, when you're 1-11 and you get hired to do a job, it might be the only acceptable way to do it nowadays. I think if Mel Tucker at Michigan State taught us anything, it's that hey, you might find some early success, but it's not sustainable on an annual basis, and so you just got to be careful with how you go about it. Colorado is not a quick fix. The only fear that I have is that you've got a short-term vision for a long-term problem, and I think Deion will be fine. I don't know what next year looks like, but you have to be able to build it through recruiting and not just recruiting transfers. And so right now they've got a top 25 class. And I think in similar vein of Nebraska, where you don't have a great recruiting footprint, you've got to be able to recruit and, more importantly, retain and develop. And hopefully that can happen at Colorado. And one of the ways that you do that is build excitement and say, hey, check us out. And they got a 2-hour free commercial on Saturday on the mothership, and they're off to a great start. I mean, it couldn't have gone any better, and maybe it's good they're not playing games yet.
Matt, I don't mean any offense with this question, but from a Colorado athletic department point of view, do you think priority number one with Deion is getting wins, or is it selling tickets? What do you think is more important to that Colorado athletic department? This
they've already crossed off the first part of your question. The season tickets are sold out. So now it's about this kind of reminds me of like a Major League Baseball expansion franchise where they'll sell out the first year, and then eventually you got to win. So the first year is a freebie. But you also have to show some progress, the old not what you do but how you do it type of thing. And if they can, be competitive with Utah, be competitive with USC, maybe steal a game, maybe shock everyone and go into TCU and win that game, then we're talking about something else. But this is a team that, won one game last year. It's like a, kid who's just, taking the training wheels off of his bike and now wants to do backflips. It's like, well, we got to figure out how to ride the bike first, and it's got to be slow and steady wins the race, but we're hitting it at 60 miles an hour right here. And we got to figure it out as we go. But I think for the athletic department, they've gotten more than they could have hoped for in the first few months of this thing. And as long as the excitement continues to build, and as long as they don't fall on their face this year, which with a whole new roster, it's hard to predict anything in this day and age of college sports, let alone college football, then I think they'll be okay.
Matt Schick, few minutes with us, Hail Varsity Radio, ESPNU tonight with some ACC baseball. You hear him on Sirius XM, ESPN Radio. Of course, you catch him on the SEC Network and ACC Network. So, Schick, with the Nebraska spring game, there was some seasonal allergies for some in the Nebraska football family with Coach Solich coming back. You had a game that wasn't great, but there was some young talent that flashed, which was good. Feel like you have a pretty good quarterback in Sims. I know you had an eye on Nebraska's spring game as well. You and your partner, Nick Baugh, with the Schick and Nick podcast, touched on it. But do you have some optimism? Do you have thoughts on Nebraska as they kind of close the book here on this spring session?
Hard to get too much of a read on anything that's going to happen. I think anyone who makes any of these predictions will probably wind up looking somewhat foolish. But I think for Nebraska, the talent will at least be on par with what they've had, and the coaching will be better. The development will be better. They've got everything they need to win consistently. Well, now, whether or not that means 9 or 10 games consistently, but it should be going to a bowl consistently. And so I think that's kind of the benchmark thing here this year. But I did find it just glorious from an outsider looking in at just the fact that Matt Rule continues to check off every single box of what a new head coach would do. It's like he was given the pamphlet. It's like the opposite of what Steve Peterson did with Bill Callahan. It's like they give him the pamphlet, give him the brochure. Here's the handbook on what to do to make sure that all the fans love you before you even play a game, so that if things don't go well, you're buying equity. You're already, half in to this $1 million house. And so if you go bankrupt, you still at least got some equity in the home. The fact that he takes, first of all, in the introductory news conference, he's stressing the walk-on program and talking about things that, black shirts and the tradition, and the guy's just hitting all the right notes. And then in the spring game, the first play, hands off to the fullback, and then hands that football to the ultimate fullback in Frank Solich. Like, could you be any more pandering to a Nebraska football fan base that is just starving for something to be excited about? And it's so smart what he has done. He should have also held a cat as he went out there onto the field. They should have crossed off every single box. He should have been tackled at the 45-yard line. Or, as my partner Nick Baugh said, they should have allowed the fullback to Jack Hoffman it all the way to the end zone to just let this thing go through the roof. Like, it was a great thing that they did, but there's no question that Matt Rule is doing exactly what you need to do to make sure you get all of the support from within. And I couldn't help but think of what happened nearly 20 years ago when Bill Callahan, on his first spring game, the first spring game without Frank Solich after he had been fired, calls 7 pre-snap motions and an incomplete pass over the middle, draws a standing ovation along with oohs and ahs, and then less than 20 years later, you look down on the field, and it's the fullback give up the middle, fullback dive that draws the standing ovation. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Matt Schick's with us here at Hail Varsity Radio. And Matt, we had a question from a listener a little earlier today about if Bo Pelini would ever come back and get the Frank Solich treatment. What say you? Does Bo Pelini ever come back and get a standing ovation?
That's really good. That's a really good question. I would say maybe it depends on how good Matt Rule does. Because if Matt Rule is the coach and it's going really well, then maybe you do it. But if it's not going as well as the 9 wins that Bo Pelini got you every year, do you want to bring back and harken back a guy that was here a few coaches ago that you got rid of, maybe not knowing how good you had it at the time and not really recognizing your place in college football? I think it can happen, but I think it's going to take a little bit more time for that to take place. But there's no question that if it's going to happen, they probably have the right coach, the right AD, and the right guy and the Godfather and Tom Osborne, who's still walking the sidelines to make it happen.
Matt, if you've got the headset on whenever you're trying to think up an honorary play for Bo Pelini, what would it be? Because mine would be, outside zone, let the running back take it for 70 yards while breaking 4 tackles in the snow, maybe at Camp Randall too. I think that's my honorary play call.
Wow.
Well,
was that harsh?
That's
I'm sorry.
pretty impressive. No, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, just make sure a Wisconsin back runs for 300. Is that what you're saying? That's the honorary game.
Pretty much.
I would actually say the honorary play call is to have your it's on defense, and you have your defender tackle a guy out of bounds, and then Matt Rule screams at the official and draws an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, and then boom, there you go. Like, so instead of handing the ball to Frank Solich, you essentially hand it to the official by getting in his face, spitting at him, waving his hat, almost hitting him in the face with your ball cap as you have on, and boom, there's your Bo Pelini tribute. I think that would be terrific.
Tell you what, that would bring a tear to my eye.
That'd be all right. The old Bo cam. Matt Schick's with us, ESPN. So, NFL draft, Matt Schick has been promoted to GM of, well, we'll say Carolina. It's your backyard. You've got Young, you've got Stroud, you've got Will Anderson, you got Jalen Carter. You've done a lot of NFL draft coverage. You keep an eye on it for sure. So interested to see who's your, air quote, favorite or player you're most impressed with in this year's draft across the positions. I listed the top 4 on a lot of draft boards.
Yeah, I would. If I'm Carolina, I would be going down the C.J. Stroud train here, just because maybe he has the lowest floor, but I think he has the highest ceiling. I think you get a little concerned. You start penalizing players because of all the talent they were surrounded by. He had like 3 first-round wide receivers he's throwing to. Even NFL teams don't have that. So that's one of those things that maybe you could knock on him. I don't know what this S-test is all about, this cognitive test that is used for some players and quarterbacks. Apparently he didn't do great on that. But, I'll take the size. I'll take the skill set. I'll take C.J. Stroud. Defensively, yeah, I think Will Anderson is probably the play. If you're looking at the back end, I love Devin Witherspoon from Illinois. He just smells like a top 10 pick and a lockdown corner for 10 years to come. So those are kind of the names that you think about. I thought the whole Will Levis thing this morning was humorous. I couldn't imagine Carolina trading up from 9 to 1 to get Will Levis. You probably could have gotten him at 9. So that would be one that would be very curious if that were to take place.
Schick, have a great call tonight. Thanks for a few minutes. We'll get caught up again and get that Deion hat ready next time.
We'll do it, guys. I'll be all cleaned out and ready to talk some CU football. We'll do it next time.
God love Schick for letting us into the medical procedure that he's going to have.
Poor guy.
And letting us into his prep time as he's taken to the mic now on ESPNU with Kyle Peterson to talk some college baseball. NC State tonight, and they're playing ECU, Eastern Carolina.
Yes.
So a couple of teams that could make a run to Omaha. So
ECU had a great run last year, if you remember that one.
They were all right.
Great baseball team.
We'll dive into the email bag, I promise, and the scorched earth that is happening in Boulder. It's Hail Varsity.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmidt on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back with you. Good stuff from Matt Schick, Mitch Sherman, also in Hour 1. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. It's where you go for the podcast. Can do the whole show in 90 minutes of bliss. If you're on the treadmill, walking rover, or let's be straight, you just don't want to hear your wife. Or maybe she doesn't want to hear you, or girlfriend doesn't want to hear you and she's listening to it, it's okay. There's multiple thousands of reasons to do it.
Maybe you're cooking.
Right?
Props
Put the buds in.
if you're doing 90 minutes on the treadmill, I mean, props to you.
I did an hour with my Elijah-inspired vest last week.
I mean, even
those are good stuff. I'm not sure if you saw Mitch Sherman actually posted his early morning little workout, and a lot of guys.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Had the weight packs on as well. It's the wave. Get yourself a rucksack, get yourself a weight vest, whatever.
I'm just doing the weight vest, and I'm doing the circular track. No treadmill with it. No, I'm just putting my earbuds in, and away we go. There's a ton of podcasts for you to choose and enjoy with Hurrdat. Check all of those out. You can watch the show, full show, or segments, Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Can hear us across the state. And then, of course, our friends at KFOR, Facebook and Twitter as well. Guys, let's dive in and focus a little bit here on the email I've been talking about for 90 minutes. The email's golden. The email is from a place of love from Dylan. Dylan's a Nebraska fan. Dylan takes time to listen to the show, so thank you, Dylan. And he's talking Frank Solich. Chris, wanted to get my take to you. Loved having Frank Solich back. Good thing for the program, and hopefully he's around more going forward. My question, though, is when do we give forgiveness to Bo and realize how great of a job he did? Not only did he win a ton, but he was good at keeping players accountable. I laugh just because I think of some stories that have not been shared on air about Bo's tone and intensity when it comes to accountability inside the locker rooms, and from some friends we've had on the show before that played for Bo. I smile about that. I think he gets a bad rap because of his persona. Thanks for your take, Dylan. Dylan, thanks for tuning in. Listen, is there a problem with Bo and the camera, the Bo cam? Yeah, there was. Has Bo worked on trying to lose it less? I'm sure he has. Did the Green Machine happen? Did David Banner turn into the Incredible Hulk at Youngstown? Yeah, he did, especially when he followed the refs off the field of the national championship game. The guy's a brilliant defender. The guy is a good evaluator of talent. The guy recruited well. He is honest with his kids. He has your back. And did he mouth off to his boss? Sure. Should he have had either of those bosses? 2 former attorneys or 1 current attorney? No. That's the screwed up part of the dreaded curse we talk about. It wasn't a curse of somebody from the Peaky Blinders era doing some witchcraft on Nebraska football. The curse was having guys that don't know football or athletics in charge, squeezing out people who do know football and athletics with their decision making. Bo needs to come back. Bo needs to be honored. It will take a Brinks truck to get him back here. He's not a greedy guy. I know he had it paid to leave. I get all that. Bo will not come back here because Bo was wronged. Bo feels like it wasn't just media that ousted him, but he thinks the fans maybe turned on him. That's my read. So he won't be back. I mean, it'll take a long time, and not to stereotype, but I'm going to wade into that pool, and it's not out of a place of hate. But I think a lot of folks from the Rust Belt,
especially from that generation,
from we're talking the mid-'60s to 1970 and beyond, dude, you piss off somebody from the Rust Belt, they will kick your, and then not forget that you insulted them.
And that's a big stereotype.
They're tough, dude.
Yeah.
Go watch the movie Slapshot. That's what I'm talking about. Folks that are hardworking, great people, love their family, and things fall on them, unfortunately, when it comes to jobs and family and just economic downturn. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm painting I've never been to Youngstown. Maybe I should visit. My point is Bo has a long memory, and it's going to take a lot to forgive.
And
you won't be coming back as long as I'm alive.
You were painting with a broad brush there. I think
trying to be fair.
That much is evident, but I don't think you're coming from a wrong place. Like the people I know from up in that area, they all got a chip on their shoulder. And that's not bad. It's who they are. And I think that's culture. I think that's circumstances. I think there's everything coming from that generation. You got to be tough to survive
exactly the Rust Belt.
Exactly.
Man. You got to be as tough as it gets.
And I don't think that is the reason why he's not coming back, but I think that's a part of it. And I think that's why Bo Pelini is who he is. And I think Bo Pelini being who he is always going to have a chip on his shoulder about how the Nebraska situation ended. I think he's always going to have some hard feelings about that.
Sure.
How he was treated by the fans.
And Frank had 2 decades of hard feelings, and he should have.
I mean, whoever will forget the Fairweather fans rant from Bo Pelini, I don't think his opinion on that has changed one bit.
No.
I don't think time has healed that wound.
Listen, if you know how damn lucky you are if you were one that started leaving early. You're down 21 points to Ohio State. Yeah, if you came back in and they let you back in, good on you. But too many folks went to go pour a cold one in a solo cup in a parking lot. Your choice. I don't care if you were there or not.
Let it be known. My dad wanted to leave that game at halftime, and I said, "No, Dad. I put my foot down. We're staying for this one."
You're not going anywhere, old man.
It's the inaugural Big Ten game. We are going to sit here. I don't care if it's cold. I don't care if it's rainy. I don't care if Nebraska's down 21. We're staying for this game. So, Bo Pelini, you're welcome. That was all me.
Let me ask you this. I would like to see Bo honored.
Oh, 100%.
Totally would like to see that. Frank's just was the first casualty of awful administration. Bo was another casualty of awful administration. They should have just let T.O. stay in the athletic director's chair and everyone shut up and get out of the way with decision-making. Didn't happen. Now things are okay because you've got Trev and you've got Coach Rule, and things seem all right. As much as I loved Bill Moose, I mean, Bill's a good dude, fun dude. Bill's a BSer. Bill's not a somebody that's there to supervise. Okay, he is not there to supervise, and if you're not there to supervise, you may or may not be as locked in as you need to be as a head coach.
Well, I have a question for the Nebraskans in the room here.
Do it.
So when
give me a little more deep voice Chicago there, Barry White.
When you compare, I mean, so obviously if Frank Solich is the standard to come back and be honored, when you compare Bo to him, how different is that?
It's way different because Frank was part of Devaney's first recruiting class. Frank was all conference as a fullback. I mean,
so the roots play a big part of it.
Well, I mean, he was a player. He was a player. He's a player, and then he was an incredible assistant coach. Like Barry Alvarez tried to hire Frank forever away. Minnesota had offered their job. I mean, Frank Solich was such a good assistant coach and running backs coach and recruiter that Nebraska probably doesn't win a national Coach Osborne doesn't win a national championship without Coach Solich staying. That's why he said, "Look, man, I'll duck out in '96. You get the job then, but just give me 5 more years. We're on the verge here." Because Nebraska was 9-3 and finishing 15th and 20th in the country, and there was some staleness. How good does that sound? Going 9-3, finishing or winning the conference, and that wasn't good enough. And then you land some great recruiting classes and development and Tommy Frazier, and away you go. You go win 3 titles in 4 years. That doesn't happen for sure without Coach Solich. Doesn't happen without McBride. It doesn't happen without Coach Osborne's staff together with him for 25 years. They were each good enough to have their own programs. They were each good enough somewhere at some level. They were each good enough either at evaluating talent, developing, and they were each good enough to go recruit either in-state, 500-mile radius, New Jersey, California, Hawaii, Texas. It was an incredible ensemble with as good as it gets leading it.
And this
kind of Hotel California. You can come in, but you can't get out.
And
as an assistant.
And that's why Frank Solich's name has been etched into Husker history. Frank Solich will be intrinsically linked with that era because of what he did. And this is no offense to Bo Pelini, but his name is not going to be etched in Husker history for the right reasons. He didn't win
a
national championship. He didn't win a conference title game.
That's my question.
Does he deserve to be honored?
I think
the wins are there.
I think the wins are there, and the win. Yes, because he was ousted inappropriately.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think he deserves to be honored for what he did at Nebraska, not for being etched into Husker history. Frank Solich this weekend was the confirmation. Yes, Frank, all your years here, they've paid off. You're being etched in Husker history. I don't think Bo Pelini, whenever you look back in 30 years, is going to be a name that comes to the forefront of this era of Husker football. And that's no offense to Bo.
There's levels to it.
Yes, there's levels to it.
There's too much history with Frank in Nebraska beyond being head coach.
You may think of Bo Pelini those years fondly, but I don't think you will think of him as an instrumental part of what Husker football was in its greater history. So the amount of work that I think it would take to bring Bo back and have him honored in that same way would be tough to pull off because of what Bo Pelini's legacy is around here. And I'm not saying his legacy around here is bad. It's just not the same as a guy like Frank Solich or Charlie McBride or Tom Osborne.
What Bo did with the transition to the Big Ten is, Nebraska has sucked. Nebraska should be kicked out of the Big Ten based on their on-field performance the last 6 years, the last 7 years, okay? They are not. They're still a brand. They still pull their weight financially with eyeballs, okay? So there's still value in Nebraska. Somebody needs to change the direction of what they're doing on the field in the sport that is most important in this state but beyond the Big Ten. Basketball's big too, don't get me wrong, but football's king. So Nebraska needs to start being Nebraska again. That's been uttered a lot. Bo helped transition a team in, and they were very respectable, and in year 2 played for the championship. So that needs to be remembered as well. More with Hail Varsity continues.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
We'll get to more of your stream comments, more of your emails, and phone calls, 489-1240. Bill emails in, chris@hailvarsity.com. Pretty sure the next move will be naming the chancellor's office after Bo Pelini. So you got the locker room, the field, and now the chancellor's office. Matt checks in on probably unpopular opinion here, Matt, but good on you. They should honor Perlman.
Should honor Ron Kellogg at this point for his one throw.
Ron's a good dude.
He, my roommate, middle school teacher here locally, and about 2 weeks ago, Ron Kellogg comes out and talks to all the middle schoolers. He's been doing some youth outreach since his time in college.
I think he's in Lincoln at is he Dawes, doing work at Dawes after school program still or something like that.
I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
And I won't name where my roommate's at. It's not Dawes, but I'll keep some information from going out there. I know whenever you're dealing with 12-year-olds, parents can be a little worried about that. But anyway, I digress. It was just funny to hear my roommate talking about how much more starstruck he was than any of the kids because none of those kids remember. They don't remember the Northwestern game anymore. So
you caught the rain delay against Creighton.
You get a pretty good synopsis, I guess.
Yeah, you do.
But you had to be there. That's one of those moments in Husker history that you just had to be there. How magical that was, and interesting to think about the fact that today's middle schoolers don't even know who Ron Kellogg is.
No,
it's my 24-year-old roommate who's the one who's starstruck by Ron Kellogg swinging by and hanging out with the kids.
God, that's what 2013 for the Hail Mary. It's 10 years ago.
Yeah, these kids were toddlers.
You guys were
in middle school.
Both of you, though. You were 12 and 13 or 11 and 12 years old, weren't you?
I can't remember if I was an 8th grader or a freshman in high school. It was one of the two. I would have been an 8th grader.
Yeah, so my 7th grade year was the Weebacks and Calvin Jones and Derek Brown, man.
A little bit different.
A little bit.
There's levels.
Long-ass time ago.
Well, I hate to be that guy, but...
You're going to be.
Yes, I'm absolutely going to be, because that game broke 11-year-old Connor Clark's heart wearing my purple Northwestern jersey.
Yet you're still here.
And knowing that Jordan Westerkamp was the one who caught it, because he was recruited by Northwestern. He's a local guy, but that's just kind of the funny story I like to tell out in Husker land.
You know what else broke, 30-plus-year-old Chris Schmidt's heart when he may have wagered on top 10 Nebraska the week after Michigan State, and old 3-5 Pat Fitzgerald rolls in and and upsets Bo Pelini in Nebraska. He may have wagered, and not only did you guys cover, you smart kids, but you won outright. And it may or may not have cost Mama a trip to the beautician.
Those teams.
Hey, at least it wasn't a trip to the Bahamas. Trip to the beautician's much worse than, or much more acceptable than a trip to the Bahamas.
So I don't want to hear about breaking hearts.
Those teams were gritty, man. I mean, they found ways to win.
Ebert? Yeah.
I mean, they found ways to get to the postseason, no matter how ugly it was.
Well, we're going to do a bingo card for this year's Northwestern game.
We should.
And if we need to come up with the squares for the bingo card, and what's your poison? Are you tequila, you vodka, you shots, is what I'm saying.
Oh.
We'll just do a live stream of it.
All right. I mean.
So when one of those things happens on the bingo card, because it's always weird, 7-point ball game.
Well, do we want it to happen or not want it to happen?
I mean, it just happens. So if missed field goal happens and
I see.
Just the normal flow of a game.
Oh man, I mean, I wouldn't want to take a shot at tequila.
Okay,
so
all right, just make plenty of time to think about it.
That actually gives me a good idea. We should do like a Husker drink along game for watching games this season, and it's all the painful things you remember from years past. Special teams flub, take a shot.
Sure. No, we will get on that. Let's get on Deion here for a minute. Coach Prime, listen, I think he rocks the expensive cowboy hat well, but really interesting article with On3, and they liken the Coach Prime experience thus far as a controlled burn. Okay, so the objective of a controlled burn gives soil a fresh start, maintain a natural health of a certain area. The problem with a controlled burn, there are consequences. A controlled burn can kill unintended plants, trees, and animals. It leads to erosion and sedimentation, and it makes the air toxic. And sometimes those controlled burns get out of control and a wildfire starts anyway. Are we witnessing a wildfire right now?
Well, the analogy that I have for Coach Prime at Colorado is the wildfire's fine, but I compare it to something a little closer to my heart, and that's the production suite over here that Connor is currently in. It's been undergoing some renovation here over the past week or so, and in part of that, there has been 2 desktop monitors as well as 2 desktops that have been completely removed from the studio. Some of the changes are awesome. Yes, we're adding some new stuff. It's shiny. It's new. It's awesome.
It works.
But we've lost, as of today, 2 old desktops in there. And Connor and I, before the show,
2007.
Yeah, and we barely used them. Like it was probably great to get them out of there. But Connor and I discussed what the hell do we even put here now? There's just a big empty space in the production suite, and we're like, got all these ideas of things to fill it with, but then you start actually getting into the logistics of, well, a coffee maker, yeah, but who's going to stock the coffee? A mini fridge, who's going to stock the mini fridge? Like a whole bunch of ideas for what we could put in that empty space, but we were so focused on getting those computers out of there that we didn't even look ahead and think about what we would put in there instead of 2 new computers.
43 departures.
And that's what I'm saying. Like you as Coach Prime, you came into Colorado and you're saying, yeah, we need to make room for all these great players we're bringing in. Like, we're bringing our own luggage. Like, we need to get these out of here, just like these computers. But now that you have all these players in the portal, you're looking and going, well, you don't have much returning experience at all on this football team. You know, anyone that knows the Pac-12, your coaches are going to Twitter now saying, hey, we ain't hard to find. Come find us here at Colorado.
Portal, it ain't hard to find in Boulder either.
But you don't have a consistent plan for what you want to do with those spots you've now opened up. And it's kind of the same thing we're dealing with in this production suite right now of, well, what the hell are we going to do with all the space? You've made the space, Deion. Congrats. What are you going to do with it?
Well, listen, you've lost as bad as the pieces were to the program. They're 1-11. They were the worst football team in college football last year, so the talent was not performing, or there wasn't talent up to the level of even putting up much resistance in the Pac-12. Maybe the coaching was that poor, or what they brought in was so bad. There's multiple factors, okay? But there were some quality pieces. You can't tell me Colorado did not have some NFL hopefuls or talent there. They've lost 3 or 4 guys recently that had good spring games, that are talented, and that are going to be commodities on the portal market because of their experience and some of their size and their speed. That is the consequences here. They could be so bad with this roster flip that they may never recover. And they've already been close to a point of no return with how horrible they've been from a competitiveness standpoint. And the fact that now Deion's lashing out at the league. Well, you can't keep kids to play in the Pac-12. He wants to go to the Big 12. And I think Colorado will get back to the Big 12. And he'll go get some Texas talent, sure, but it's a dangerous situation with how he's treated people and how forceful he's been. We'll wind down a Tuesday next on Hail Varsity.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Check out the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Ways you can catch Hail Varsity Radio. Also, watch the show. You're encouraged to do that. Hail Varsity YouTube channel, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. Give that a follow. And Facebook and Twitter with KFOR. And can also stream us and catch us across different affiliates, 590, Kearney Hastings, Grand Island, 1460, 1550, ESPN Superstation out in central Nebraska, then News Talk 900 in Columbus with Gus and the crew up there in Corey Schlesinger land. All right, reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelt. Saves lives, prevents injuries only if properly worn. Buckle up. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. We've covered Deion, and I know it's called a controlled burn here in the On 3 story, but it's more like scorched earth. And Vic emailed in Chris at HailVarsity.com. And Vic's theory is this, and Vic's out in Denver. We'll see if we see him in Boulder again.
That'd be good.
That'd be fun. Saw him in Ireland. We saw him at spring game a couple of years ago. Vic's awesome. So he's like, look, Deion was such a great player. He wants a lot of guys to be as athletic. And I'm kind of paraphrasing like Deion. But Deion, I hope he has some options with the offensive line, because that's what Nebraska's figuring out and facing with the offensive line. You've got a good starting point. Nebraska recruited well, clearly, with some of the young guys they feel good about. On the defensive line in this 3-3-5, you're not completely bare there. Colorado can't go into this first season with 40 portal guys and have all 40 newcomers be back 7 or wideouts or running backs. You got to get some beef on the line, man. You got to get some Ralphies there. And right now you've just got a mass exodus, and we'll see if this puts them behind the 8 ball or if it's similar to the old Jimmy Johnson, let's just tear down all of the Dallas Cowboys, and that may be extreme because Jimmy went on to win 2 Super Bowls. But you've got to absolutely tear down to build up. I get that, but I think Deion is his ego is in danger of absolutely turning people off.
And it's because he seems to think that his playbook at Jackson State will work the exact same as it did at Colorado. Where at Jackson State, you can come in and you know what? If you have a team full of newcomers down in the HBCU, that can work for you. If you're able to get more talent than everyone else down there. And you know what? Name of the game down there, you got fan interest at Jackson State. They're selling tickets. They're selling the place out. That's why he got hired by Colorado. Now Colorado can do the same thing as, we're selling tickets now, and then eventually we're going to get some good talent in here. They'll get a year or two under their belt. They'll start winning some football games. But the problem at Colorado is you will never be the most attractive landing spot in the Pac-12. assuming that the Pac-12 remains
Or
how
Big
it is right
12.
now, or Big 12, or wherever you are. You're Colorado. It's going to take years and years and years of success
It took
to
Bill
reach a point.
McCartney 8 years to
what I'm
build
saying.
up, and they even went 0-10 in like year 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's not overnight.
That's what I'm saying.
Quick-
You can't use the same formula.
Well, you just gotta be patient with it. And now, I mean, it can be a quick fix, but can you go Mel Tucker 2.0? We'll dive into a little bit more on Kisei here tomorrow as he has put his name into the NBA draft. We'll talk to you at 4. It's Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.